Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Freddy the Rabbit and Phil show. We have in the studio with us today the greatest secular symbol of life, love, and everlasting joie de vivre, Monsieur Freddy the Rabbit. Could we have a little smattering of applause for Freddy the Rabbit?
Hi, Philip. Thank you. Did you say secular rabbit?
I did not.
Oh, you're secular.
I said secular. Secular symbol. The rabbit has always been a secular symbol of rebirth and regeneration. We can
resurrection.
The unicorn tapestries from the Middle Ages are filled with rabbit imagery around springtime. Spring is the time when the world is reborn.
That's right.
And the rabbits have always been traditionally a secular symbol for life, love, and rebirth.
I could use a rebirth myself. I'm a little subdued today. You know, we had some comments about the show, and
no, really?
Well, just a few people concerned about maybe we're teaching false doctrine. They're referring to you, of course. They can't be referring to me. But
I don't know that we're teaching anything, are we?
Well, no, I don't think so. But I wanted everyone in the audience to know that we've hired some consultants, some, not censors exactly, but some people to kind of keep an eye on us to make sure we don't, get out of line. George.
Good to be self-governing.
George Orwell. Hi, George. George out
Thanks
there.
For coming. Thanks for coming today.
And your uncle Socrates DePoy to make sure we don't corrupt youth. Sock. Yeah. Sock, put that glass down, will you? Anyhow, by the way, I wanted to give you a card that I thought maybe you could send those folks. Just give it
Thank
to
you very much for this card. I'd like to show everybody what the card looks like. Can you see that?
Yeah. It's a good card. We'll share it later with you.
That? It's the cow eating grass.
We'll share it later when the show is showed in the evening when adults are watching.
Thank you very much.
But I got a story.
That's about all we have time for today.
I got a story. And I think it's a good story. I'm not kidding. I'm a little subdued. I took an antihistamine tablet for a little sinus. Rabbits also suffer from
spring allergies.
Pollen. Right. It's unbelievable. It's paradoxical.
Well, it's probably this darn El Nino thing.
El Nino.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know her.
Yeah.
Him, actually.
It would be him, yeah.
No, I got sorry. El Niña.
La Niña. El Niño. Repite. El Niño.
El Niño.
La Niña.
La Niña.
Oye, ¿quién es ese chico?
You're so good at it.
Well, I don't know.
No,
you have a story to tell.
Well, that opens up a story. And it's a cartoon I saw. It's a great story. Let me see if I can get through it. It's a story a cartoon I saw back in the 60s, late 60s. And it was done in Canada, and rather kind of a dark, serious cartoon. But it starts off like this. There's this image on the screen of a little child in a home, a dad and a mom in the next room. And dad and mom are arguing and yelling at one another. You don't hear any sound with them, but the child's in the room crying, and then you hear the child go, la, la, la. And the parents are still arguing back and forth, and the child continues to cry, and then the child says, la, la, la. And finally, it looks like the dad's had it. He comes in, he takes the kid, throws the kid out in the street. There's this kid kind of walking down the street, just a little child at this point, and the child's going along and hears some singing. Gets excited and goes over and sees this big building and goes inside and enters what turns out to be a classroom. And there are all these chairs lined up in very straight rows, very orderly. And the children are evidently singing, doing chorus. And they're singing the song, and there's a teacher in the front, doing this. And this child, so excited, crawls in up in one of the seats. And then in the midst of the chorus, you hear, la, la, la. Everything goes quiet. The teacher in the front goes. So they start singing again, and the kid gets caught up in it. You know how creative people are. And before you know it, you hear, la, la, la. The teacher goes down, grabs the kid, takes him out to the door, throws him out into the street. So there he is. Or she, it could be a woman, of course, walking down the street, looking even more forlorn, goes along and hears Lo and behold, more singing. Oh, there's hope. Goes looking, of course, for those voices and sees a very, very large building with a cross on top. And follows the music and goes inside, and there are all these pews lined up. Everyone's singing in the front, and someone's standing there, directing them. And he's so excited. He gets up in one of the pews, sits there, and in the middle of the hymn, you know what he does? La, la, la. Suddenly, quiet. All these faces turn. And the person up front goes, but they go back to singing, and before you know it, Philip, you know what happens? The creative urge. La, la, la. Person comes down from the front, grabs a hold of him, takes him over to the door, and kicks him in the behind and throws him out on the road. There he is, walking down the road, lost, looking so forlorn. And he goes along and he hears others singing, kind of like patriotic, military, kind of a cadence. Hup, but, and he goes on and looks over in the field, and there are all these folks. Now today, of course, it would be men and women marching with rifles over their shoulders, and this big old brawny guy in front of him, and he goes over and he gets that little gun and gets in line and goes marching with him. And in the middle of it, of course, he says, la, la, la. Everyone stops. They look. Mean, vicious faces. The old sergeant goes. They start off again, and lo and behold, la, la, la. Sergeant goes over, throws him out. There he is, walking down the street again, now looking terribly lost and desperate and forlorn. But he hears, lo and behold, just these enthusiastic voices. It sounds like just large, huge multitudes. And he goes along, he sees this huge stadium. And he goes in, of course, all these rows and all these people, and they're just all talking and yelling and cheering. And he goes, the game isn't going on yet, so he goes right down into the middle of the field. Oh, finally, a place to sing my song, is I'm sure what he's thinking. And he goes, la, la, la. Suddenly, quiet. La, la, la. You see these masses coming down out of the stands, this dark mass surrounding him. And then he disappears, and nothing but a black screen on the TV. Very depressing for me. I'm sitting there early in the morning watching this cartoon. And then the crowd starts to back off, and there's the headstone. And suddenly the earth opens up. You hear this voice go, la, 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 la. Now, that's a powerful story. That's a moving story. And I think it's your story, and I think it's mine. Now, the one way you could look at that is
Is that I'm doomed to be killed in a sports stadium? That's the message that you're trying to teach me today?
No, it's the last thing I would wish for you. But that's the literal interpretation. Another interpretation would be, you would say, wow, this is another thing about the individual fighting society, and all these institutions are out to destroy us. They won't let us be creative. They won't let us sing our song. They won't let us take our stand on issues. All of it's out there. And that would be one way to do it. Perhaps a lot of young people in the 60s saw it that way. Now, my sense, as surely as I got older, was the voices that say you can't be creative are really, they're out there. But the really challenging ones we got to come to grip with are inside. And that cartoon is kind of a portrayal of what goes on in my soul. And I would even recommend in yours that inside of us, we'll call it that divine spark, that creative urge, that real voice we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. How do we find our voice, our new voice? And in us are all those things we've taken in, all those voices that we assume are the institutions out there telling us you can't be creative, you can't find your true path, you got to do this, you got to do that. And so the battle really is within. I mean, let's pretend you're my parents, or my dad.
All right.
Hey, Dad, I got a great idea. I'm going to be a singer. What do you think?
The biggest load of crap I ever heard.
Well, I mean, I, I it'd be
You can't sing.
well, yeah, but I could learn, Dad. I could learn how to sing. I've got potential, and I've got a halfway decent voice, and I think I could do it. And
how are you going to support yourself?
Well, I, I could do without for a while. I mean, I think I could make a living, but that's not really the important thing, is it? I mean, you always told me it was important to really do something with your life, and I thought, here's my chance to really do something, to be something, to be creative, to sing my song, Dad. 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 And what I'm saying is Dad isn't just outside of it.
Yeah.
Dad is
you have an inner voice that also tries to control that stuff. I'm quite familiar with it.
Yes, so am I. So that's the big struggle. That's the big battle. And we've talked about learning to listen to our own inner voice and hear the voices from outside and deny the invitation of some to be this or that. But when I recalled that story just recently, I had a sense of, okay, that's only part of it. The paradox is the voices are out there and they're also in us that call us away from that creative urge. And this reminds me of this, and you're the perfect person to talk to about this, reminds me of the story of Beowulf. No, you are, Beowulf.
Oh.
Because you've written the play about Beowulf that I learned recently. But Beowulf, if you look at the story, and I assume a lot of people out there would be well acquainted with it, because I remember you have to learn it sometimes.
Got to read it in school, that's right.
So they didn't read it. Yeah. You got to read this. I ain't going to read it. I'll get the college outline series. But if they read the college outline series, but in some ways, Beowulf goes, if I remember, is it Grendel?
Grendel is the monster.
Is the monster that comes into the hall every night and tears people limb from limb and whips the best, most skilled warriors of King Hrothgar. I can't believe you. I don't believe I remember that either. Actually. In fact, I'm worried that I remember that. Hrothgar. And Beowulf is kind of this traveling guy who hears about the plight, maybe like a hired soldier.
So it's like a hired gun.
That's a hired gun. He comes in, he has a little card. Hab's sword will chop off arms.
Right.
So Hrothgar hires this guy, and if I recall, does Beowulf have some buddies too? Some other warriors?
Beowulf brought some warriors with him.
A little backup, and so he gets there, and that night, if I recall, Grendel arrives. That's right, and Beowulf takes him on, slices off his arm with a sword. Grendel kind of, goes off and goes out into the dark, cold, muddy depths and descends into the pool, and he dies. And so they say, wow, we have whipped the enemy. We have whipped the source of all our pain, this creature out there that we can kind of stand up against. And then, if I recall, Beowulf and the soldiers, his sidekicks, are in another hall, and lo and behold, something even more terrifying. My mother arrives.
Yes,
No.
Grendel's
mother arrives in the night. And, of course, kills, murders viciously. Men, women, and at that point, Beowulf has to decide, am I going to go into the depths? Now, here was my thought, and it ties in with that story. In some ways, I mean, creativity, you know it, I know it, a lot of people know, creativity has to do with that play with light and darkness, and the creative energy comes out of that paradoxical, that polarity. Would that seem appropriate to you? That world. And you can't just live in the light. You've got to go.
You have to have the interplay of light and dark.
You go into those
day
depths.
And night.
Day and night. Masculine, feminine. Life. You've got to go into life as it is. So there's Beowulf goes, and if I recall, I mean, just to get in touch with the terror of it, even his best warriors are terrified.
That's right.
To go in.
And they won't go with him.
They won't go. He
has to go by himself. Underwater. Into the underwater cave, into the feminine place, find something in him that can defeat Grendel's mother. It's not utterly unlike Theseus and the Minotaur, which we were talking about a while back.
Yes.
How exactly is it that you're able to defeat your own monsters? How do you find the voice in you that can help you to defeat those monsters? This is what we'll be talking about in some future show, if there is, in fact, a future show. Thanks a lot for joining us. It's been Freddy the Rabbit.
I was ready to descend into the muddy depths.
Don't have time for the muddy depths.